and how it relates to positive school achievement, and it relates to other things as well in terms of including improved personal relationships, greater employment stability. One of the things that we've been talking about recently is the idea of relating SEL to students who are going into the work world, maybe not going to college, but going to work. And these mental health and SEL skills are directly related to being successful in the world of work. But we know there's a growing need and an unmet need to provide services for children. There's a very small percentage of children who need these services that actually receive them. Many of them have serious mental health problems. Sometimes they don't receive treatment because they don't have access or because there's a stigma. But of those who do get help, a great majority of them get services in schools. Schools are really the best place to provide mental health services to kids. It's the best place to focus on prevention. And again, prevention is not about treating mental illness, it's about preventing it. People like school psychologists, counselors, social workers, who they know the students, they know the parents, they know the staff, they know the school, the district, the community, and the culture. And so they are best positioned to provide those services. And students are more likely to want those services in schools in a setting they're familiar with and with people they're familiar with. In some places, schools are the only place they're going to receive services in rural communities. Um, it supports the idea of learning, which is what school is about. Um, I'm going to jump ahead a bit. So, school employed mental health professionals like school psychologists, school counselors, school social workers have the expertise to provide those services within a school setting. And you can see the different areas of expertise these folks bring to providing those services. It's essential for having safe schools. It provides more physical and psychological safeties, and those supports, as you can see, includes social emotional learning and wellness. Those are involves services for all students, not any subpopulation of students, but for everyone, and it's essential. The context for that, which you may be familiar with, is multi-tier systems of support, where all students receive services at the level that they need them, with the frequency and the duration and the intensity that they need. All students are different, and so they receive those services specifically tailored to their needs. And it's an opportunity to provide those kind of services before they become long-standing services. But access, as it says here, access to adequate staffing of school employed mental health professionals is essential. And we're going to come back to that. This was a report by the Surgeon Generals back in 2021. And you can see, again, kind of the same thing. The number of children that need mental health services, and that almost half of them did not receive any services at all. These are the contexts where students that affect mental health of students themselves as individuals, their parents, their teachers, their friends, the neighborhood, and the socioeconomics and cultural context they live in. All of these are the different contexts that affect children's mental health. Uh, Governor Murphy headed a commission back, I think it's in 2023, and among the conclusions they came to is the need to reduce the risk of mental health conditions. And if you go to the bottom, training and supporting caregivers and educators. And we're going to come back to that also. Department of Mental Health in New Jersey developed a grant to provide funding to increase the number of experts who provide those mental health services in the schools based on the need. It's through a multi-tiered system of support. And if you look at tier one, it talks about promotion of positive social, emotional, and behavioral skills. Tier one is for all students, for all children. You may be familiar with the social emotional learning framework. These are the skills, and these are the contexts in which those skills can be utilized. Those competencies including being self-awareness, understanding one's own emotions, being able to manage their thoughts and their feeling and their behaviors, being able to empathize and see the world through other people's perspectives, establishing healthy relationships, and making good decisions for themselves. Department of Education has released a guide for providing mental health services through that SEL framework. And you can see they see the relationship between a positive school climate and implementing social emotional learning. And again, these are the competencies we just talked about. So we know that mental health matters, to say the least. It affects children, affects how their relationships, their decision making, and how they're able to function. But there's a problem, and the problem is who's going to provide those services. There is a shortage of people who have expertise in the area of providing mental health services to provide those services, and that becomes a problem. So in the schools, who are the people that are the most likely? I'm sorry? Who are the people that are most likely to provide those services? Well, school social workers can, but there's a shortage of social workers. School counselors certainly are able to have the training to provide those services, but again, there's a shortage of school counselors to do that. And last, and certainly not least, are school psychologists. But again, there is a shortage of school psychologists. So the question becomes, who else in the schools can be trained and are able to provide those kinds of services? And I'm going to turn this over to Phil now, who can talk a little bit more about that.
Okay. Thank you, Barry.
You are welcome.
And okay, so how do I work this so that I have my screen be seen, Bill?
Phil, if you go down to the bottom, there's a green button that's called share.
Yes, I see that.
And then if you click on that, you'll see your screen. And then you just click on the bits that you would like to share.
Oh, I want to. Oh, well, I want to share just basically my camera, right? What people are
Oh,
looking at.
no, you're good. We can see you.
Oh, okay, so because
Yep.
on my end, I have a very small little box here. So
Right. And so what happens now is if people can on their view,
yeah,
they can have you be just the speaker.
awesome. All right,
Yep.
so you
You're good.
guys adjust it, and we'll go from there. Well, thank you, Barry, and I am going to attempt to answer the question that Barry has posed to us all. He's given you the landscape here today, and now what I want to do is I want to give you something that you can use tomorrow morning. Now, the slides are going to be up. Someone asked, they're going to be up on the website, I believe, after our presentation. And I have a PDF that you can also access at the end of the presentation. It's going to be up on the website. So all you got to do is just sit back and relax and participate. So I use a simple process. It's called the ACT matrix. ACT stands for Acceptance and Commitment Therapy and Training. So what you're going to be getting today is acceptance and commitment training. And it addresses the things that Barry has described, and there's no special training that's required for this. Anyone can use it. So, the way that I begin, if I'm working with a student, is I would say to that student, would it be okay if I showed you my point of view? And I can tell you, I've been doing this since 2009, and no one has ever said no to me yet. So it works like a charm. So once I get the yes, and if you have a disgruntled adolescent, I usually count a as a yes, just so you know. And then we move from there. So what I'm going to do now is now I'm going to show you I have a whiteboard, which you should see right now, right? And I use this thing all the time. And so I would have this ready either as a whiteboard or on a piece of paper. If you're in a classroom, you could have it on a blackboard or a smartboard. And it's just basically two cross lines that form four quadrants. And then I already have the first question already written. So the question that I ask is, who's important to you? And then I say, I'll go first. For me, my wife is important to me. So then I'm going to go here and I'm going to write the word wife right here in the lower right. So This is audience participation time. So you folks, can you put in there who is important to you in the chat? And I'll jot a few of them down. Kids, there you go. The kids make the board. Hey, kids make the board. Terrific. Husband, dog. Yes, pets are people. Very good. Husband, dog, daughters, friend. You guys, okay, you've had your coffee. You got the idea, right? We're writing down who's important to us. And as people start telling me this, as my students start telling, oh, grandson. Yes, okay, very good. Grandson makes the board. There you go. Yeah, you got it. So now what we're doing is we're just mentioning and talking about our important people, and I'm writing it right down there where they can see it, right? We can have a grand old time just doing this if we want, but there's more. So once I've got that going, now I'm going to come over here, and now I'm going to say, in the over here on this side, well, we all have uncomfortable thoughts and feelings that show up on the inside of us. And I call it yucky stuff because it feels yucky when it shows up inside of you, right? So stuff like fear might show up inside of you, and it's yucky. And that's the idea. So what kind of yucky stuff might show up inside of you or somebody else? So once again, I'm going to look in the chat. Please chat in. I'm going to put fear down. That was my example. Angst. Ooh, I like that. Angst. That's a good one. Angst, it's cool. Anxiety. Oh, yeah. Anxiety is very popular. I hear that a lot. Stress. Okay, here you go. You guys got the hang of it now. Frustration. Oh, yes. Absolutely. Frustration. Gonna put that down. Mean people. Oh, yeah. Mean people. All right. Aggravation. Ooh, another A word. Aggravation. Awesome. And as you can see, all I'm doing is I'm just writing down just what they tell me. We're not editing, we're not evaluating, we're not assessing. We're just simply putting down what they say, what I hear. And now that yucky stuff goes over here in the lower left. Okay? So now I'm going to head up here to the upper left. And up here, well, I'm going to put the things that I do or that people do to get relief from their yucky stuff. Like it shows up and you kind of want to get away from it, right? So these are things that other people can see you doing. So I used my example of fear here. So if fear were to show up inside of me, you might see me do something like run. I would be running to try to get relief from my fear. So now I'm just going to write run here. I'm enjoying a little arrow because I'm doing the running to get relief from my fear. So everyone does relief moves. They're necessary for living, right? So what do you or people you know do to get relief from your yucky stuff? So someone said angst, something I might see you do to try to get relief from your angst. What might it look like? Oh, let's say deep breathing. Okay. Oh, cool, cool. Deep breathing. So you're doing some deep breathing to get relief from your angst. Awesome. Someone else? Oh, so for angst, let's say anxiety, some might be doing exercise to get relief from their anxiety, right? So I'm exercising. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do my yoga, whatever it is that I do, right, to get some relief. There. Oh boy, these are some great relief moves going on here, right? Stress. Okay, let's do some binge watching, right? Have anybody in there done some binge watching? I know I have. So we're going to do some binge watch. All right. Or someone else said read. Let's say frustration shows up. What might you do for your frustration? You're a student. What might you do? That's it. You got it. Thank you, Anna. Yell. That's the biggie. That's the biggie right there. Heard a lot of that over the years, right? And we're just writing it down. These are just the things that they're telling me that they do to try to get relief from their yucky stuff. And it's just normal, naturally occurring stuff. We all do these kinds of things all the time, right? So now that I've got that going, we're going to come over here to this quadrant. And now I'm going to say in the upper right now, I'm going to put the things that move me closer to the people that I care about, right? So I said my wife. So something that you might see me do to move toward my wife is you might see me text. I could go and text my wife. I could say, "Hey, how's your day going?" Right? And I'm doing it as a satisfaction kind of a thing to approach satisfaction, right? So now, how about your kids? Something that you might do to approach satisfaction with your kids. Let's chat that in. Family time. There you go. Family time. Movies. Plan an outing. Family time. Awesome. Family time. Plan something to do together. Yes, very cool. Game night. Absolutely. Game night. Awesome. Awesome stuff. These are all satisfaction moves for folks. We're doing it for the purpose of satisfaction. How about something for your husband? Something you might do for your husband. Oh, dinner. Oh, yeah. Dinner with the husband. All right. So now, Dale, you can go home and you can tell your husband that you mentioned on a web chat that he's important to you and that you're going to have dinner with him. How's that sound? Dinner. Awesome. How about for the dog? Something for the dog. We can't leave the dog out of this. Something you're going to do with your dog. Go on a walk. Take dog park. Yeah. Go to the dog park with the dog. Dog park. Awesome. All right. Let's go with one more here. How about grandson? What are you going to do for your grandson or with your grandson? Oh, pup cup trip. Ooh, I like that. You got one for the grandson. What do they like to do with you? Or do you like, oh, movies. Oh, there you go. Grandsons and movies. They go together, right? Movies. All right. So once I do this, now I'm going to say, hey, thanks for doing this with me. And remember, like I told you, this is my point of view. So now, folks, here's what I'm going to do to show you how I turn this. This becomes the point of view. I write the word notice right in the middle of this diagram. As in, what we have been doing is we have just been noticing about who's important to you. We have been noticing about yucky stuff that shows up inside of you. We've been noticing about things that you might do to get relief. And we've been noticing things that you might do to get satisfaction with the people that are important to you. So now my question to you is this. Do you think that you might have an opportunity, say in the next week or so, to notice who's important to you? Might you have that opportunity? What do you think, folks? Anybody think they might have an opportunity to do that? You chat in. I think I will. Right? Most people, yeah, there you absolutely, there you go. That's it. Right. Yeah. And they're going to say, yeah, I think I can do that. And hell, might you notice this yucky stuff showing up inside of you in the next week? Maybe have an opportunity to do that. What do you think? There you go. Right. Yep. How about might you notice yourself doing some relief moves? What do you think about that? There you go, right? Yeah, just might do that. And might you notice yourself doing things to move towards satisfaction with the people that matter to you? What do you think? Yeah, that's it. So now I'm done. I've asked them if I can show them the point of view. I've shown them the point of view, and we've walked through it together. So now, let me tell you what just happened here, folks, because a lot of things happen. First thing is I start out by, well, first thing I do is ask for permission, which I think is a very cool thing to do. Is it okay if I show you something? Versus, how does this sound? Here's what we're going to do. Which one sounds better to you? Is it okay if I show you something? Or here's what we're going to do? What do you think? As you listen to me say those things, which ones? Yeah, there you go. Permissioning. Yeah. The question gives agency. You got it. That's exactly what we're trying to do, right? I'm going to meet them right where they are. And especially if they don't know me, right? They don't know who I am. And all I'm asking is for permission to show them something. I'm not telling them they have to do anything or not do anything. It's really just a, can I have your permission? Everybody's going to say yes. It always happens. Now, notice the first question that I ask. The first question that I ask is, who's important to you? That is not a random question, folks. That is a question that we have developed over the years. Dr. Kevin Polk is the creator of the Matrix, and I was fortunate enough to be working with him when he developed it, and we have gone on and done lots of interesting things. And you could, if you download the stuff, you'll find out more about that stuff. But my point is this: we found that who's important to you really resonates with people. Okay, and so it's not a random thing. When people say, why do you start? Well, here's why: you start with who's important to you. It calms people down as you begin to talk about and think about and recall your important people. How does that feel on the inside of you as you start thinking about your dog and your husband or your wife or your kids? You start thinking about these people, and now what shows up inside of you? What would you say? For me, it's a warm, fuzzy feeling, right? It feels good. Yeah, safety. Exactly. Exactly. You feel safe. And when you're working with students, especially students that struggle, like the ones that we talked about here, you can actually see them relax when you start asking that question. They get this kind of feeling of, yeah. And Anna's a matrix person, so she's like when my students acknowledge that they are important to themselves. Yes, and then they even say, if you're working with kids, they're going to say me, and I'm going to say, yes, that's cool. You're important to you. That's exactly where you want to meet them. You got it. Peaceful, yes. So with all of those feelings are showing up. Okay, and now what this doesn't do is it doesn't trigger the amygdala, right? We all know about the amygdala, folks, your threat detector system, right? That's been scanning for threats since before you could talk, right? So we don't want to trip that amygdala off. So we start with who's important to you. It's a nice calming thing. And we're starting with connection. That's what we're doing here. And that makes a huge difference when you're working with students, and especially when you're working with students that struggle. And this is also the beginning of what we in ACT call psychological flexibility. And what that is, it's the ability to move toward who and what matters with your yucky stuff, because you can't leave it behind. It's got to go along for the ride, right? And it increases your ability to do that rather than getting stuck and struggling with that uncomfortable, yucky stuff that shows up inside of you. Also, what I've done here is I've introduced them to a non-judgmental point, a way of looking at things, right? We're just looking at stuff. Here's you, and here's what's happening with you, and we're just stepping back to look at it, to take some perspective on it, right? And now we have a shared point of view, you and I, whoever I'm working with, we share it together. And we also have this shared language, as you have heard me talk about who's important to you, yucky stuff, things you do for relief, things you do for satisfaction. And then the biggie is the noticing. Now we have a language that we can come back to anytime we want. And it also turns out that this psychological flexibility is actually the cornerstone of mental health, because to be able to have a valued life, you have to be able to move in the direction of what matters to you, even when it's uncomfortable. That's the biggie, right? We can all do it like on a good day, when the wind is at your back and the stars are in the right alignment and everything's got all the lights are green, all that stuff. It's great. So on those days when you wake up like Monday morning, when maybe you're not necessarily feeling like bounding out of bed, that's where the psychological flexibility comes in handy, right? And I mention that specifically because the students I work with had a lot of trouble getting into school, right? They would feel that stuff, and then instead of getting into school, well, they would do their relief move. And what is the relief move for when you don't want to go to school? Anybody want to hazard a guess as to what that might be? What do they do? You guys know this. Yeah, but before they even do the misbehavior, they stay in. You got it, Paulina. They stay in bed. That does not require any action whatsoever. Right? They just don't go, and that works really well to get relief from your yucky stuff. Right? This is why it's so enticing. So can't say that I blame them because it does poof. In the short term, it gives relief, right? But in the long term, well, we know what happens, right? They get more stuck and they get more used to staying home and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if we can get them in, right, and that was my job, was to get them in. And the first thing that I did is I showed them this diagram because I wanted them to have a different experience. I wanted to meet them right where they were. We didn't have to change anything. We're not trying to fix anything, like Barry said. We're just meeting them right where they are. And now, the thing about this that's really cool is that you don't need to know anything about ACT. You don't need to know anything about psychological flexibility to use it. It's not required. It's absolutely not required. My students didn't. My staff didn't. When I trained my staff, they didn't know anything about psychological flexibility because we're showing them a process. We're showing them a process that they can use anytime. And when they use it, they learn how to take stuff with them over time and do more of what matters, right? So Elizabeth has a quick question. I'll jump over here just for a little bit. How do you address responses that reveal unhealthy ways of attaining relief? For example, rely. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to just do a little digression here for Elizabeth. And I'm going to basically then say, if someone says to me, because this is exactly what happens, what do you do to get relief from your stress? Okay. And then that person says to me, I smoke weed. Well, guess what I do? What do you think? You already know me a little bit now. What am I going to do? I've shown you a process. Someone I've asked for what they do to get relief. They told me. So now what am I going to do? Yeah, exactly. Right. Smoke weed on the board. You've got it, Elizabeth. I would go up here and I was like, smoke weed on the board. Right. And I would write it there. Right. And that's as much as I'm going to play with it at that point, folks. Now, there's going to be other opportunities, other situations, but for right now, the goal here is to promote psychological flexibility. So now I've got this student sitting in front of me and they're telling me they smoke weed to get relief from their stress. That's a good thing to notice, I think. What do you think? Right? They're now kind of just calling it out that they're doing that to get relief. That's the beginning of awareness, folks. So now maybe the student will want to change that behavior. Maybe they won't. Right? This is exactly what happened to me. I had an intake. I did this, and that's exactly what this young lady said. She said she smokes weed to get relief from her stress. By the end of the meeting, she then volunteered to me, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't smoke so much weed. Now, this was in the presence of her parents, and there were other people in the room. Now, why do you think she was able to do that? I can tell you why I think. Because I met her where she was. I wasn't disrespecting her. I wasn't telling her she shouldn't smoke weed. She was sitting there. Yes, she trusted me and she was able to take perspective on herself too. She could see that, I'm smoking a lot of weed and maybe it might be getting in the way of me. In this case, it was getting in the way of her coming to school and doing her work. So that's how I would address something like that. That's just a little quick aside, but I want to continue. Does that answer your question, Elizabeth? And you actually answered it yourself, so cool. All right. Yes, good. So once you've shown the matrix, you can return to it anytime that you want. And what we used to do in my program is it would be up on the board. If you walked into my office, you would see the matrix diagram. I had a big whiteboard. I'd put it up right there in the morning. I'd come in, and that way it's available for use. And then it evolved to in the classrooms, we put it up on the walls of the classroom or on the board so that anybody can use it anytime they want. And they would do, we called it in our program, we called it flexing ourselves up, right? So the way that it worked would be where it evolved into our program. I started showing it to students individually and then kind of caught on. And then the next thing you know, I'm moving into the classroom with it. And now we're then in the morning, for example, teachers and the students and the support staff, we would meet each morning and we would begin by drawing this matrix diagram up on the board. And then we would go through the process. And the way it started out is I started to facilitate the process. If you'll notice, going back to what I said before, I modeled the responses to the student. If you go back and review, and if you watch the recording or get the PDF, I give them examples first, like, who's important to you, like my wife. So I don't do anything that I wouldn't ask them to do. So they get this modeling effect too. I'm showing them how it works, and they catch on. They catch on very, very quickly to this, and then it really starts to take off because then we get some buy-in, right? Someone mentioned trust. I call it buy-in. They buy into this process. They lean in and they want to participate. They want to be a part of it. So what we would do is we go around, and then if you wanted to, you could say who's important to you. If you didn't want to, that was okay too. It was always voluntary. Most of the time, most of the students would then go ahead and say who was important to them, their yucky stuff, and we'd have a good old time. And very quickly, what would happen was one of the students would say, "Hey, can I do it?" And I would say, "Well, absolutely, you can do it." So now I hand the pen to them. And now that student came up front and then started asking the questions, right, to their fellow students, which is a very cool thing, right? So now that student is doing some perspective taking too, right? Because now they're in a role where they're asking these questions and they're getting responses from their peers, and we're putting stuff up on the board, and everybody's kind of just looking at it. We're just sitting back and we're noticing. And what do you think people are noticing as you're going through that? So imagine that you're doing this and you're maybe with a group of students now, and you're putting stuff up on the board. So what might the students be noticing at this point? And you haven't done this yet, so I know it's a stretch, but I just figure I'd throw the question out now because what the heck? So one of the things I will share with you that they notice is that, wow, yes, you got it. I am not the only one who might feel this way. Connections through similarity. They realize that they're the same, right? Oh boy, I got the same kind of important people that they have. Oh, that person has that has the same kind of yucky stuff that I've got showing up inside of me, right? So now we're normalizing things, right? We're normalizing that if you're going to live a life, you are going to experience uncomfortable stuff. You're going to experience anxiety. You're going to experience stress. You're going to experience frustration, right? And this is just part of being a human being, folks. And they're seeing that, right? So now it's not like you still want to have it, but now they're learning how to, and now I'm going to bring in this word noticing. Instead of struggling with their anxiety, they are now just sitting back and they're noticing that they have anxiety. That's a very big shift. And what we're doing here is we're doing perspective taking. We're helping them to step back from what is going on, and now they're taking perspective on themselves. Okay, and now once you can take perspective on yourself, you have more options and choices than if you're just anxiety is just overwhelming you. So it's kind of like this. So what we're doing now is we're taking this uncomfortable stuff and we're stepping back from it, just being able to take a look at it. And we're not trying to fix it. We're not trying to change it. We're not trying to say these shouldn't have it. We're just simply stepping back and we're noticing. That's the first thing. And it's a very powerful process that kids will, like that young lady I talked about. She stepped back, she took perspective, and she said, that might be something I need to do something about. Now she came to that. That's what I call empowerment. She empowered herself to step back and take a different look at herself And from there, now she would have to then go and try some behaviors and see what might work for her. That's going to lead me into the next part of this. Because once I've got students, and once you have the students kind of used to using the diagram a bit, now you can ask this question. And the question that I introduce is what you're work is what you're doing working to get you where you want to go? That's the question. Like we call it the workability question in ACT. Is what I'm doing working to get me where I want to go? You step back, you take a look at the diagram and you say, is what I'm doing working for me? That is a very important question that you ask. Now, here's the caveat, folks. You do not answer that question with words. You're not looking for a verbal analysis of, well, let me think of, we're not doing that. We're just stepping back and asking the question to do some noticing, to just step back and see what's going on. So I'll give you an example. So a student might be, let's say they are I don't know. Let's say a student's scrolling on her phone before a test. Probably not going to happen too much because we're going to probably be having lots of rules about cell phones and all that kind of stuff, and they're being banned. But we're just going to go with it for the sake of the example here. So someone's scrolling on their phone, right? All right. So let's say that now they're looking up at the Matrix, and okay, yucky stuff showing up. What do you think? Probably some yucky stuff. It's before a test, right? Um, and relief move? Well, what's the relief move? Here's your relief move. I'm scrolling on my phone to get relief from my anxiety, right? Now, is this working to get me where I want to go? That's the next question that you might ask, or they might ask themselves. Okay, she does not need for me to tell her that, right? She just steps back and notices. And then when you have the space to notice, things start to shift. So I'll give you another example. I had a student once who, we've been doing matrix work for a long time, and he came to me and he said, "Hey, Mr. T, I used the matrix today." I said, "Oh, yeah?" I said, "What happened?" He goes, "Well, I was going through my day, and I was noticing I was having a really crappy day." Oh, cool. And then he said, and then I thought about the matrix. Now, he didn't have a piece of paper. He just kind of did it in his head. He said, I thought about who was important to me. And for him, it was his parents and his family and his brother. And for him, it was also getting to middle school. He was in a program that I was helping to run for students that were really having a great deal of difficulty and needed a more self-contained off-campus setting. So he thought about that. And then he said, and then I noticed that I was really angry and frustrated, and I was being disrespectful to the teachers and just having a bad day. So now he did his yucky stuff. He did his relief move, being disrespectful. And then he thought about, well, what might I do to get myself back on track? And then he started doing some of those things. And then he finished up by telling me, and guess what? He said it worked. So this is an example of once students get this process going, they learn how to use it for themselves. They use it on their own. And I've had it. We've worked it with kids from like 6 years old up to high school, and it's the same process, folks. So for those of you that might be wondering about that, you might have to change the language a little bit, but it's still the same process. It's still the same thing. So, uh, so far, so good, folks. Everybody on board? I have more. Can I show you some more? Oh, wait. Somebody give me a yes. Oh, I got thumbs up. All right. Okay, cool. All right. So now, here we go. Once you've got these individuals noticing, and you kind of did a little bit of noticing whether stuff is working, well, so the next question is, well, okay, can we do this together? Well, as a matter of fact, you can. Now I have another diagram I'm going to show you. We're not going to spend so much time on this today because we don't have all that much time to do this. But now we have another diagram with a different question. So think about this. Think about this first diagram. This is what I would call the me matrix. This is just for the individual, right? Now we're going to shift to the we matrix, which is this is for your group. So now we're going to have the whole group involved in constructing a we matrix. So the question now becomes, and I've already written down here, we changed the question. It's the same diagram. It's going to work the same way, but now the question is different. The question is, what's our shared purpose? What is our shared purpose? What are we here to do? That's the question that I would ask. So let's take it from the point of view of those of you who are here with me today. What's our shared purpose today? And now we can go back to the chat and put that in the chat for me. What brought you here? I'm here to show you the matrix. So I'm going to go first. Show the matrix. To learn about SEL. Tools. There you go. There you go. You got it. You got it. Connection to other school sites. Yes. Connection to other school sites. Awesome. Yes, very good. Cool, cool, cool. All right. So this is the way I would start a group session. I'm going to ask that same question of my group. So let's say I'm a teacher. I might say, hey, I'm Mr. T and I'm here to teach you reading. What brought you here today? Right? So the kids are going to say things like, well, they might say learn, but a lot of them are just going to say things like, I'm here to get credit. So what am I going to do with that? When they say, I'm here to get credit, what am I doing, folks? Who can chat in and tell me where I go next with that? Write it on the board. You got it. There you go. You got it. Right. This is the simple shift, folks. We don't have to get into any debates or discussions because someone's going to say to me, "Oh, I'm only here because my parents make me come to school." So you know what I'm going to do? You already said it. I'm going to write that down too. You're here because your parents make you come to school. Cool. It doesn't matter why they're here, right? What matters is that I want to engage them and they have a say. They're saying why they're here. Perfectly legitimate reason to show up in school. How many of us would probably go to school less back in the years gone by if there wasn't a parent or somebody telling you you need to go to school today? I would have been one of them kids that probably would have wanted to stay home if I had the option, right? But we now know. I also know something else. I also know why they're there, and I also know that the parent is important to this child, right? That's an important thing for me to kind of keep in the back of my head. So you learn a lot of things when you do this, is what I'm saying. And you mentioned SEL. I want to go back because I didn't really spell it out too specifically, but this is doing, I call this as doing SEL. Because what we're doing here is we're looking at the social world of action. This is the social world of action, right? And the emotional world of the mind, right? This is all the stuff that shows up on the inside of us. So we're helping the student by doing this connect up the social with the emotional. That's why I draw these arrows because they're connected, right? I'm doing these things for relief. I'm doing these things for satisfaction. And then the learning is what happens when you can step back and you can notice. And specifically, what we want to help students noticing is the consequences of their actions. What happens when they do what they do versus what they think might happen when they do what they do. And then over time, what we want them doing is coming up with different behaviors, trying different things out to help them move in the direction of where they want to go, right? And we started off with the individual, and now we're going to be moving into this group Now the group's going to be helping each other out because we've started with a shared purpose. This is super important to start with a shared purpose, folks. It is the numero uno thing that I think is missing when we work with groups. We do not start with a shared purpose. We do not start by asking the question, why are you here? And having a conversation about that. Because if you don't know why you're here, well, how are you going to know if what you're doing is working to get you where you want to go? So it's really super important to have this conversation up front. Then we can get into, well, over here is now we're talking about social yucky stuff. This is the kind of yucky stuff that shows up when you're with other people. So we got some social yucky stuff showing up, right? So what kind of social yucky stuff might show up and get in the way of our shared purpose? What might that be? Anybody got some ego? Oh, right on top of that, Bill. Very good. Ego is the biggie, right? So ego is the me, right? This is a we. So me, mine, right? I don't want to, I can't, that kind of stuff, right? That's ego. But also, we also are going to be looking at the other things is anxiety is going to be there, right? Fear. Very often in a group, it's fear of participation, fear of speaking up in a group. These are the kinds of things that show up that get in the way of moving toward a shared purpose. But now they're already familiar with the process. They're going to start sharing the things that show up when they're with a group, right? And it can show up inside of any of us, right? Ever been in a group where you start feeling this kind of stuff? Absolutely, it happens to all of us. Then the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at, well, what do we do to get relief from our social yucky stuff when we're in a group? Right? Well, when you're in a group, we already said the numero uno thing that you can do to get relief from social yucky stuff is don't show up. Just don't go. That's the easiest thing to do, right? And there you go, right? Now, let's say that you have shown up. What do people do in a group to get relief from their yucky stuff? What do you find that they do? Yes, argue. Bingo. Numero uno. Argue. Don't talk. Yeah, I'm going to show up, but I'm not talking. Don't talk. Right. And how about, let's get on the phone. I'm going to get on the phone. Right? Get on the phone. Get on the phone. Another one that's popular, complain. That's another one that people will do in a social situation, right? Multitask. Oh, there we go. Right. I'm going to get all kind of stuff done. I'm doing 5 things at once here in this group, right? Pull out my laptop, get on my smartphone. So, and we're just calling this stuff out in a very nice, non-judgmental way, right? And also, what we're doing here is we're saying, well, this could happen. People in our group could do this kind of stuff. We could see them doing it. But now we know we're doing it for relief, right? So this is important stuff to be able to get out in the open, right? Somebody mentioned, I think, hidden agendas, right? This is how you get this stuff out of the weeds a little bit, right? Get people kind of talking about it non-judgmentally without pointing fingers. We're not blaming, we're not pointing fingers. We're just saying, this is stuff that could happen. So finally, come back over here. What are the things that we're going to do that are going to help us move toward our shared purpose? Now, I will seed this here, folks. I will put down something that I think just to kind of get that conversation going, because sometimes it can be a little bit of a tricky thing. And what I write down is communicate respectfully, right? If we're going to move toward a shared purpose, do you think it might be useful if we were able to communicate respectfully? Yeah, there you go. Right. And all of that, if you want to do team building, that might be something we put in here. Do some team building exercises, right? And then we can have a conversation about, well, which ones? How are we going to do them? Team building, right? Establish norms. Now, establish norms, here's how I get at established norms is who's going to do what, right? Who's going to do what? And then people start saying, well, I can do this, I can do that, right? Because you've got this what you're trying to accomplish now, right? You're trying to accomplish something, right? So how can we pull together? How can we pull this wagon up the hill together? Whatever it is that we're there to do, right? And along with this established norms thing, uh, Haley, you reminded me that down here, I might also say here, um, two questions that I used to add that I found useful when we're talking about shared purpose, especially with young children or kids that are struggling with each other. How do I want to be treated in this group? I ask that question first, and then they tell me, right? And what are they going to say? Respectfully, all that kind of stuff, right? So we get that going first. I follow that up with a second question, which is, how do you want to treat others? So now I've done the how I want to be treated for me and how I want to also be interacting with other members of my group. And now it's all written down here, folks, right? So now we know that's our target. That's where we want to go, right? Up here now we list the behaviors that are going to help us to get there. Then we can step back like we just did the first time around once we've had that conversation. And we're going to do some noticing again. We can notice our shared purposes, right? We can notice the yucky stuff that might show up inside of members of our group. We can notice ourselves doing things to get relief from that. And we can notice ourselves doing things to get satisfaction. So now I've completed what I call a second loop for the group. And now this second loop for the group helps to set up conditions for what we call psychological safety. Psychological safety is the feeling that I am in a group, that I feel safe, that I trust people, that people have my back in this group, that I can contribute and participate, and that people aren't going to bite my head off. That condition is very important, especially when it comes to learning, right? If you don't feel psychologically safe in a group, it's very hard to learn, right? It's very hard to kind of get where you want to go. So now I've shown you the two loops, and back to what Barry has said, the kids that are struggling, the mental health needs, the anxious ones, the disengaged ones, the ones who struggle. This process gives them, and it gives their teachers, because the thing that I didn't say, but I will say now, is when you use the matrix with somebody, you're also doing it on yourself. You're flexing yourself up too. You're increasing your own psychological flexibility. So when you're able to do this, you have a shared language and you can do a reset anytime. So what schools can offer that a therapist can't is, well, you can offer this, and you can do it every day, and you can do it in any classroom you want, and you don't have to be certified, qualified to do it, because you're just having conversations with people. So we got just 5 minutes left. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in this. Oh, sorry. Am I still there? Did I leave? Oh, no, I'm still here. I'm going to put in the chat the link to downloading. I created a PDF guide for you. It's got the whole two loops in it. And you can download it from here, or Bill and Liz told me that they will have it up on the website along with the recording. So, questions or comments? We have a couple of minutes left. Is this useful? My first question to you. Is it useful? All right. So here's my invitation to you is to show it to someone. Just pick one person to show it to, because that's how we do this. We pay it forward, right? Just show it to someone. You say, hey, I learned this point of view. Let me show it to you, right? And you practice it. It's a practice. It takes some time, kind of like riding a bike. You don't necessarily get it overnight. You have to practice at it a little bit. And yes, and that's what I like about it. It's very simple. It's something that anybody can do, and the kids will do it too. You'll see. So, is there a question before we wrap up for today? Okay, looks like we're good. Thank you
Well,
for thanks for coming today. Thank you for being a part of this. Those of you that chatted in, appreciate that very much. And I hope that you use it. And look, my contact information is in the download stuff. Feel free to email me anytime that you want. If you have a question or something you want to share with me, I'd be love to hear from you.
thank you, Phil and Barry. This was so interesting, and I just love how it's so portable as well. You know, the whole approach. It can be applied to different situations. One can just adopt it in one's own practice, which I actually took some tips away. I think is a very
I,
handy tool.
I used
And
it in my practice as well. Yes.
sure, it's just wonderful. And thank you. It was a super engaging presentation, and we really, really appreciate your time and insights and everything. So thank you so much. And as Phil's already shared the document, what we'll also do that will be posted on the website along with a recording of this session. And we hope many of you will be able to access the website, share it with your colleagues. As Phil said, share this. You know, the world is full of just great ideas that are kind of top secret. So anything we can do to address that is wonderful collectively. So we hope you'll be able to join us at a couple of our other webinars. We have another one coming up at 1 p.m. today on SEL in the arts and fostering well-being through the arts. It's wonderful. Kira Rizzuto from New Jersey Arts Ed. So with that said, kind of have a rest of the wonderful SEL week and SEL day and hope to see you all soon. So thank you.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody.